We're holding on page 942, the second paragraph of the page. We were talking about that it says, Lihudim Haisa Oida v'Simcha v'Sasim v'Kar, and we explained Oida goes on Toida, and Simcha goes on Yom Tov, and Sasim goes on Mila, and Yikar goes on Film. And we wanted to essentially understand the connection between that and the idea of Lihudim. What does it have to do with the concept of Dafka Yidden being called Lihudim? That whoever is called a Yehudi is someone that admits to call Torah Kula, and he denies Avodah Zarah. And we explained that in Torah, the level of first word of Oida, the first meaning of Oida, there's two levels. There's the level that's higher, that's the level of the source of Oir, higher than the source, there's higher than the level of Torah Oir, and then there's a level of Oira, the way it receives, and through the receiving and through permeating us, so then we reach the level that's higher. And this is also connected with the idea that a Yid is one that has Mesiras Nefesh and believes, denies Avodah Zarah, and so on. So now we're going to go in a similar fashion. We're going to explain two ideas in the concept where it says Simcha. There's also two levels in the second idea of the pasuk. This pasuk the idea of joy. We said, what joy are we talking about? The Chazal said, what is the Simcha? It's talking about this, the Simchas Yom Tov, the joy of Yom Tov. It says the Simchas Yom Tov Bechlal in Didavagbal. The joy of Yom Tov in general is measured, is bounded, has limitations to it. Rambam la'alacha, like the Rambam rules la'alacha, who b'shkonarach Rabbeinu Hazaken, it's brought down in Shkonarach and the Alter Rebbe Shkonarach. Yom Tovim, during Yom Tovim, even though there's a mitzvah to be b'simcha during Yom Tov, moedim l'simcha, v'samach b'chagecha, hayu bezdin shelchim shluchim. Bezdin would send messengers to enforce and to ensure that the simcha should be measured, should be bounded, should not get out of hand. The Avsha Simcha Zu, flawless in Yanahu, Mesiras Nefesh Shalom Mailam Didvagbala, though in general, Simcha is idea of going beyond limitations, beyond measures, beyond boundaries. The idea of Simcha is breaking out of one's limited state and his boundaries and so on. Still in all, and that's the idea of Mesiras Nefesh. Since this mitzvah was transmitted to the Yidden during the giving of the Torah. And as we mentioned before, the giving of the Torah was something that came from above. It wasn't from within us, like happened by the Ness of Purim, but rather it was a level of that when he took the mountain and put it over their heads, held it over their heads like a barrel. That means that it came about from above. Now, what does it mean? Does it mean literally the Hashom, that literally the Eibishter threatened the Yidden with annihilation? No. Rather, Medrash uses a certain type of metaphoric language to be able to express a very deep concept. We're saying, like explain in a different place, the level of the mountain is a great love. It says about Avraham Avinu that that it's Nimshal Lahar, that it says that he went out to daven by the served the Eibishter by the mountain. Avram's service was in a way of love. Love is an idea of mountain. So when the Eibishter held the mountain over their heads, that means the idea of the mountain, a great love of Hashem was being revealed. The kafal leim har kegigus. Inyan Amshachas Avarabel and Hashem Yisrael is drawing down a great love to the Yidden, and because of that strong manifestation of love to the Yidden, so the Yidden as if didn't have a choice in the matter, and they reacted automatically to that great love that they had a love back to Hashem. So it's even though they accepted the Torah at Mount Torah with their will and was their choice, But still in all, the way they accepted it was in such a type of way that it was like from outside. It wasn't their doing. It was just they was like so overwhelmed and taken by the great love of the Abish. Therefore, has limitations, it has boundaries, it is limited. It's not something that could be really be considered that it's coming from them. And since it's not really coming from them, so that's why it is has a limitation. When it comes from deep within us, so then we said before, that's the level of Mesiras Nefesh of Yehudi, that has no limitation. As opposed to the joy comes about through the self-sacrifice of the Yidden down here below. That they were Yehudim, meaning they denied the idea of Avodah Zarah. That's why Yidden were called a Yehudi and Yehudim during the entire Megillah, because they withstood the test of not considering at all, assimilating and leaving Yiddishkeit. Since it is something, it's a joy that's resulting from the power of the person down here below. Therefore, it is higher and greater than any type of measure and boundary, as opposed to the simcha of ordinary Yom Tovim, not the simcha of Purim, which is coming from above, and therefore, since it's coming from above, it's not really coming from within us, it's still limited. So now the Rebbe says, but even that which we do down here is only thanks to Hashem. Though the one down here below in his service is through receiving the power from above, like we said before, about the level of Ora that's Torah. That we said one meaning in Ora means the source of light. Another meaning is Ora is the feminine to the masculine Ora, which means that it's a receiver. It's taking it in. And who is it receiving from? It's receiving from the masculine, receiving from what it says in the pasuk Torah. So the feminine aspect of Torah, or the Torah, the way it's by us, is receiving from the masculine aspect of Torah, the Torah. So therefore, how can we attribute it to our doing? It's really something that's coming from above. Afterwards, through his service from below, he reaches and he awakens much deeper matters until a joy beyond measure and boundary. Simcha. That it says, what does it mean to Yehudim? It was joy, which is the Chazal say that the joy is a Yom Tov. Through the Yidden being in a state of Yehudim, so their avodah affected that the joy of Yom Tov should be beyond all measure and bound. Now the Rebbe says an interesting point of here, that it's not just that the simcha of the Yom Tov of Purim without boundary. It's not just trying to tell you that they had an unusual simcha because of the level of Yehudim, because it was something that they worked on and they brought to the fore. So therefore, they had an amazing level of simcha. So you would think it's just limited to the Yom Tov of Purim that they had that amazing level of simcha. Comes the Rebbe and says, no. From Purim, it comes down the joy of a mitzvah for the entire year. If you remember, we learned this, I think it was in the previous mimer, that Masechta Megillah finishes with the 3 Yom Tovim. It speaks about how you have to teach the matters of the halachas of Pesach and Pesach, and the halachas of Shavuos and Shavuos, the halachas of Sukkot and Sukkot, because that's showing you that the idea and the concept of Purim have to be drawn down throughout the entire year, and that is done via the Yom Tovim the whole year. Befrat besimchas Yom Tov she'im atzma mitzvah k'may shekasem v'samach b'chagecha. Especially in the joy of Yom Tov, that it itself is a mitzvah, like it says, v'samach b'chagecha. So it's not just that we have the simcha from Purim impacting the entire year that we should do an avoid out of simcha, but since Yom Tov itself already has a mitzvah of simcha, so now Purim impacts that simcha and raises the simcha of Yom Tov to a much higher level. The Chol Hayom Tovim Nikar B'Maroshim V'Hashpah Simchas Purim. All the Yom Tovim, it's recognized in them the impression and the effect of the joy of Purim. That's in such a way that a person is obligated to be spiced, if you will, in Purim, to be intoxicated in Purim, Adol. So in other words, even though we said before that the Simcha of Yom Tov is a limited joy, and the Simcha of Purim is without limitations, but because Simcha affects the entire year, and like it says, Lihudim Haisa Oida Simcha, Simcha is going on Yom Tov, because of the level of the Yehudim, the level of the Bittul, the Kabbal's oil, the Mesiras Nefesh, so they reach a level of Simcha without limitation. So that impacts and gives the Simcha of Yom Tov and makes the Simcha of Yom Tov throughout the year a greater Simcha because impacted by Purim. Let's go on to the next paragraph. He goes on to the third Indian of the pasuk, like Buddha Meiser of Simcha v'Sasen. Sasen, the Chazal say, "V'hine al derech zehu gam b'inyan hamilah." So too, it's concerning the idea of the bris milah, the sasens of milah. Hine hamilah hi brisi b'bsarchem ad olam kol shenakas. The milah is a covenant. It's a sign, something that the Eibishter made in your flesh. It says forever. Aval bris zu, but this covenant that the Eibishter makes with us with the bris milah is krisasei mitzadl ma'ila. It is the covenant is being made from above. It's Hashem making the covenant with us. It's like it says even concerning Avraham Avinu, the first person that had the bris that was prior to Matan Torah, that Hashem made the covenant with him. Doesn't say that Avraham made a covenant with Hashem. That the making of the bris, making of the covenant was something that came from above. That was before Matan Torah. The Rebbe adds, how much more so the mitzvah of bris milah is after Matan Torah, top of the next page. It's like that it's fulfillment. It's like the Rambam writes in his commentary on Mishnayos, when there were mitzvahs that were given before Matan Torah, like for example, bris milah, or the Gidanasha, not eating from the sciatic nerve, and different things like that, we do not fulfill it because Avraham Avinu was commanded to do it, or because it says in Torah by Yaakov, but rather Ella, Mishum Shekach Nitztava Moshe B'Shas Matan Torah, because Moshe Rabbeinu was commanded that Yidden should go ahead and do the bris. That is the reason why we do the bris milah, not because of Avraham Avinu. That the mitzvah of milah, though Avraham Avinu was the first one to do it, now falls into the category of all the mitzvahs prior to Matan Torah and has the same power and the same approach like all the mitzvahs of the Torah. As I said before the Matan Torah, I meant all the mitzvahs post Matan Torah. Therefore, as I move on from this, is also understood Gambin Yonenu in our concept. Mitzvahs milah k'fishi mitzad Matan Torah, the mitzvah of milah, the way it's from the perspective of the giving of the Torah. Like we said before, the mitzvahs as they were given from above, that is only, it's not our doing. It's Hashem giving it to us, including the mitzvah of milah. And also on this was now the novelty that now by Purim, we had a whole different dimension added to this mitzvah. It says, Aidesha Yisrael B'chinas Yehudim, through the Yidden being in a state of being a Yehudi, that he had that bittul to Hashem, that he was koifer b'avodah zarah, he denied avodah zarah, he had Mesiras Nefesh the entire year in the times of Achashverosh. Sheyeh b'sasen zu milah mitzad ha'matav, Mesiras Nefesh b'koach hatach, and there should be b'sasen that's going on the milah from the perspective of the one down here below. And that means because of the Mesiras Nefesh, the self-sacrifice that we had as a power of someone down here below, the Oz Hamila Magas Lamaila Maila. Then the Bris Milah reaches much, much higher. Just like we said about the Torah, that through the Torah being the level of Oida, Lashon Nekeva, so we reach not just the level of Torah or the masculine level, but we reach to the level of Torah, which is Oida from the word to, the source of the light, because we have this my love Yehuda. The Afsha Bris Milah Bechlal Ksiv Lamatziach Al Shminis, though in the Bris Milah in general it says that the David HaMelech said for the choir master, it's for the eighth, meaning the idea of the eighth day. But what was the song about the eighth, and what's so special about the eighth? Because the number 8 already indicates that something higher, meaning even before the miracle of Purim. That reaches the 8th level, that's beyond the chain order of descent of the 7 emotional attributes. So already, even before the miracle, the Nes of Purim, before the Kimu Mashakiblu, Kvar, already you had that great quality of being higher than say the Shtalshus of 8. So the Rebbe says, even when you're dealing with higher, they're still higher. Even higher than the emotions, there is higher upon higher. It's like guarding and protecting, meaning the Gavoya Malay. It's a lashon. It says that there's this level, and there's a level higher than that protects it, and a level higher than that protects that, and so on. So it goes on and says, the Afshe Bris Bechlal in Yono Hulamailam did the Bakbal Mailam Atamadas, though Bris the general is beyond measure and boundary, beyond reason and understanding. Over there he explains that the idea of a covenant, not the Bris Milah, a covenant in general, is that Hashem, like it says in Parshat Tzavim, entered into a bris, entered into a covenant with us. That entry into a covenant means that his commitment, his connection with us is beyond reason, that even if there's reasons, chas v'shalom, to stop the covenant or whatever, still in all, it's a covenant, and the bris means that beyond reason we have this connection. So therefore, we find whenever there's idea of bris, even before the Nes of Purim, it was something way above and beyond. Also in this, there are many levels. Select explained in a different place concerning the Bris Milah in general. That there's 2 levels in the Bris Milah. There's the Bris Milah the person himself does. That it says it's incumbent upon us, something that's within our capability. You shall circumcise the covering of your heart. Just like the bris is about removing skin, peeling it back, the same thing. Spiritually, there's a covering over the heart. And Hashem tells us, you do it. Meaning, it's a level that's attainable by us on our own, doesn't need any extra deeper powers. And then there's the Bris Milah that Hashem does, like it says, Hashem will circumcise your heart. So therefore, even though we said Bris Milah is beyond Seder Ishtalshus, still in all, we see there's different levels of Bris Milah. There's what we do, there's what Hashem does. So in a similar vein, is the difference between that we can find different levels, the Bris Milah, the way it was before the miracle of Purim and after the Nes of Purim. This understood. The mitzvahs milah that it's not similar. Fulfillment of the mitzvah of the mitzvahs milah that was in the times of Achashverosh, or and the mitzvah of milah afterwards, then it's so much more higher, incomparably so. Let's finish the mimer. I want to finish the mimer before today is over, so let's leave the questions for afterwards. So too, it's in the final matter of the pasuk, like who the mice are simple sasan vikar. What's yikar, glory? That's going on film. Yikar, the hina yikar begematria shai. Yikar is begematria 310. Who agilu the law said that's the revelation of Mashiach's times. Sham of Amra Chazal concerning that time. Chazal said, that the Eibishter will in the future make every single tzaddik inherit 310 worlds. But that's the reward for the service of tzaddikim after our actions and our service throughout the 6,000 years of the world existing. Especially after the time, the reward that comes after the time of the heels of Mashiach. Also, the idea of glory, or the word yikar can mean two things. One meaning of yikar means that it has importance. A second explanation is that it means that it's something that is very expensive, that it's very, very precious, and so on. Let's explain in the middle of Rebbe Shari Oida, at the end, the idea of these two levels. Yehudim was vikar. Through them being in the level of Yehudim, like we said before, the bittul, the Mesiras Nefesh, through that they reached a high level of Yikar. Based upon Yikar, Keser, which is 620, is twice 310. Like we said before, that there's two levels. There's the higher level and the lower level. The higher level of Simcha, the lower level of Simcha. The higher level of Bris, the lower level of Bris. The higher level of Oira and the lower level of Oira of Torah. The same thing in Yikar, there's the higher and the lower, which means the higher part of Keser and the lower part of Keser. So he says that through this avodah they reach to the upper half of Keser. According to this, will be understood why the Chazal said that Yikar goes, or similar to this is understood what Chazal said, Yikar Elu Tefillin. The Tefillin, the Kroim Shem Keser, Tefillin is called a crown. That's also what Tefillin is about, that they're beyond reason, beyond knowledge. Part of the mitzvah of Tefillin is the enslavement of the heart and the subjugation of the heart to Hashem, the subjugation of the mind to Hashem. It's not the same, the subjugation, the sublimation of the heart to Hashem, the way it comes as a result of above. Hashem took the mountain over the head and held it over the head like a barrel. It was shibud, versus the sublimation that a person has as a result of their own service, by their own power, because of his own measure. Like it says, a person wants a person wants his own measure, more than 9 measures for someone else. Especially since the Mesiras Nefesh during Purim was throughout the entire year. Though there were all these different changes of times throughout the year. Then the Rebbe says an interesting association. This idea is similar to what's explained in the Mamorim about the 4 kinds of things, the 4 types that we take by the lulav and esrog. The milas esrog, concerning the advantage of the esrog over the rest, is darbi lanim mishana l'shana. And esrog is on its tree throughout the entire year. Not only does it grow during all the different types of weather changes, not only that, but it actually grows from the weather changes. The changes actually add and assist in its growth. So the Rebbe applies the same thing about the Mesiras Nefesh of the Yidden throughout the entire year of Purim. It wasn't just they had it for the duration of the entire year, but the entire year contributed to it. Well, Derech of Mesiras Nefesh was man Purim, so too it's concerning the self-sacrifice during the time of Purim. Not only did the changes of times not weaken the Mesiras Nefesh, like things happen over time, we maybe lose our commitment that we had to something. So not only did that not take place, in addition to that, throughout the different times, throughout the entire year, they rose up in holiness and self-sacrifice. In other words, they increased and got to higher levels and higher levels of Mesiras Nefesh, that ever says. Calls him Uvenis, Miles Mitzvah, from all this understood the advantage of the mitzvah of film and the sublimation of the heart and the brain. Shal Yodam that took place. Shal Yodam that through this Mesiras Nefesh that they had throughout the entire year, obviously the level of sublimation to Hashem and subjugation to Hashem of the heart and their mind reached a much higher level through this type of service of an entire year of self-sacrifice and growing from that self-sacrifice and so on. Through being in the level of Yehudim, their Mesiras Nefesh the whole year, they reached the higher level of Yikar, the upper level of Keser, top of the last page. That's a general idea of the service of Yidden during the time of Purim. They were in the level of Yehudim. The Yehudim, a Yehudi is someone that admits and accepts the entire Torah and denies Avodah Zarah. Through his admitting it with strength and with self-sacrifice and the entire Torah. Through that, every Avodah Zarah in the world becomes nullified. That's preparation for the fulfillment of the promise that the spirit of Tumah will remove from the land. When Mashiach comes, there will only be holiness. In addition to that, the change shall also love exceed. Just like when Mashiach comes, it says that the glory of Hashem will become revealed, and all flesh will see together. At the revelation of godliness will be in such a manner that an entire creation they'll see that with eyes of flesh that Hashem spoke. Similarly to this was also Megillas Esther. The Avshe Esther Menatorim. Though the Chazal say what is a verse that hints at Esther in the Torah, like it says, that I will surely conceal my face. She begins Helen Hester, Megillas Esther is concealment. So what do you mean Megillas Esther brings about a stage where with total Kedusha and Avodah Zarah becomes nullified? So he still says, because if he continues in the pasuk, Haster Panai, by Yoimahu, I will conceal my face in that day. This is the Yoim of Bechinas Gilut. The level of Yoim is revelation. Like it says that Hashem called the light, he called it day. Hainu Shagam Hamaila Shabehelam Vehester Gufatir Begili. Also, that level and that advantage that's to be found in a concealed way is now in a revealed way. That's connected to the service of Purim. Even in the time when we're still in Golus, we're still considered servants of Achashverosh, and because of that, we don't say Hal on Purim according to one opinion, the reason why. But still, in all, we have to reach a level of Adla Yoda. The fact that a service is beyond measure and boundary and beyond reason, it permeates his body until we see in a revealed way that also the level of the body itself is in a state where he doesn't know, he loses his mind. So you got miles up girl to put him girl, you keep putting. We know that there is a girdle of Purim and there's the girdle of Yom Kippur. And the girdle of Purim is something that's even greater than the girdle of Yom Kippurim. That's why Kippurim is Yom Kippurim is only in a chaf that shows that it's similar. Yom Kippurim is like Purim. Lost my place. But Kun Israel brought down in Kun Israel Mishum Shebiyam Kippurim. Ein Agil Yachol Liyas Nimshach Ba'achil V'Shtiya Ayem Kippur. It's such a revelation that's not able to manifest itself in the body in eating and drinking. Ein B'Lo Achil V'Shtiya. There's no eating and drinking Ayem Kippur. Mash Enkim Purim Yesh Ba'achil V'Shtiya V'Adrav B'Shofri. As opposed to Purim, Purim is just the opposite. There is eating and drinking, and it's in a way that there's a lot of eating and drinking. So in other words, it's about working with the body, not despite the body. Through this avoid with the body, we come to a level of he doesn't know the difference between Arham to Baruch Mordechai. That it's obvious by him. When it comes to Haman, he knows for sure Haman has to be cursed. When it comes to Mordechai and everything he represents, it has to be avenged. You say them is even more so. Similar to the explanation of Baal Shem Tov in the pasuk, turn away from bad and do good. That we need to turn away from the bad, and asay tov, you have to make the good, the bad into the good. Asay the ra that you turned away from. Once you turned away from it, asay that ra into tov. And afterwards to transform it to good. Similar to this, he transforms Haman to good. He transforms darkness to light and bitter to sweet. Like it says in the Megillah, and it became turned over. That he gave the house of Haman to Mordechai Yehudi, and his royal signet ring he gave to Mordechai, and so on. And that's finished with the bracha. The state situation that Yidden find themselves at the end of the time of Golus. The aim creates that the pasuk doesn't leave its simple meaning. That literally, that Mordechai was a viceroy. That we still need in many matters, natural things. We need to have the kingdom and the government. Avalaf became, despite the fact that we still need the government, the kingdom and the government in such a way that the kings are your trainers and their officers are your nursemaids, are taking care of us. That they fulfill whatever Mordechai Yehudi commands them. Anyone who's from the nation of Mordechai that does not kneel and bow down like Mordechai, that's what we are about. Goals will be fulfilled in us at the end of the time of goals. That will be fulfilled for us, where it says in this pasuk with all the explanations, beginning from the simple literal meaning, should be for us also. In actuality, down here below, 10 handbreadths for Zuti Achon Kreva Lagula Asida Mismachul Lagula. This will be a close preparation for the future redemption, that we go from the Gula to another Gula, away from the Smicha Mamish in a way that's Mamish close. Agula the Kmeitz the redemption that we are comparing it to the redemption of Mitzrayim, that the wonders of Mashiach's times will be like the wonders of going on in Mitzrayim. The Gula Zutavi Mechoidish Adar. That this redemption of Mashiach should come in days in the month of Adar Shabari Mazli, that its Mazli is strong. The Tokif Mazli, it's powerful. So then automatically the Gula comes in others, and when it comes to this, we're already in a state of freedom, complete freedom. We make the Seder in Yerushalayim, holy city, in the base of Mikdash, like it says in we will eat over there from the Karbanis and from the Pesach and the Golam Yad, since we're immediately redeemed. The Gula Mitzvah Shlema de Mashiach Tzedkenu, and the true and complete redemption speedily in our days.